Hey there everyone. This short video is going to explain how to use a semicolon to combine sentences. And I'm going to refer in this screencast to pages 392 to 393 in the Little Shawnee Handbook. That's information that's about semicolons, particularly the part where it says between independent clauses. You want to give that a quick skim and then take a look at this screencast. You also want to take a look on pages 26 to 27 in the Little Shawnee Handbook, because that gives you the actual sentence connectors to use along with a semicolon. So you want to give that stuff a read. Might want to pause this a little bit for right now. Go give that stuff a quick read, and then come back. And again, that's 392 to 393 in Little Shawnee Handbook, and then also pages 26 to 27 in Little Shawnee Handbook. Okay, so you gave those readings a quick skim, and the between independent clauses, that is you literally combining sentences. An independent clause is just a fancy word to say a sentence. It's got a subject, a verb, and it forms a complete thought. Dr. Scott ate. That is a complete sentence. That's an independent clause. So semicolon, he also drank tea. Those are two sentences that are combined with just a semicolon. And when you use just a semicolon to combine two sentences, you're telling your reader that these two ideas are very closely related. So it needs to be logical that one follows the other. Dr. Scott is talking about grammar, semicolon, his students are starting to get drowsy. Those two things make a lot of sense together. Sometimes that relationship between the two sentences doesn't always make a lot of sense, so you need to provide some kind of transition signal to connect the two sentences. And that's where those words on pages 26 to 27, that's where those come into play. So you want to take a look at those right quick, and they give you on pages 26 to 27, they give you a number of different relationships between the different sentences that you can choose from. So if you're trying to show an example, if you're trying to show a sequence of something, you're trying to show time, you've got a bunch of different sentence connectors and transitions that you can use there. So you write one sentence. Let's see, what do we want? Dr. Scott is going to play basketball this afternoon, semicolon, as a result, comma, we'll spend an hour putting on knee braces because I'm old and it's what we do. Enjoy your youth while you have it. So, Dr. Scott is going to play basketball this afternoon. I want to combine that to this thing. He'll spend an hour putting on knee braces. I guess you could just put a semicolon in it, but if you really kind of want to emphasize what's the relationship between this sentence and this sentence here, the semicolon, and then that transition, and then the comma that comes after the transition, that's really needed there to make it really easy for the reader to say, oh, hey, I know why Dr. Scott's going to spend a ton of time putting on a knee brace, because he is playing basketball this afternoon. So those transition signals, they're super helpful. They're super important that you get them down. So I probably assigned this, want you to integrate a semicolon or two into some writing that you need to do. Try it out. Use different transition signals and use those semicolons, not just to put it between two sentences, but to also use it with the transition signal to really help your reader understand how the two sentences are apart. To know that you're using them correctly, you know that you're grammatically using them correctly when you cover them up like that, and you read to the left and you have a sentence. Dr. Scott is going to play basketball this afternoon. That's a sentence. Subject, verb, forms a complete thought. To the right, do you have a complete sentence? He'll spend an hour putting on knee braces. That also forms a complete thought. That means you're using it correctly. If you cover up the semicolon, the transition signal, and the comma, and you've got a sentence to the left and a sentence to the right, you are using it correctly. Let me give you an example where you're not using it correctly. So give me a second. Here's an example where the semicolon does not work. Dr. Scott is going to play basketball this afternoon, so we'll use the same test. Cover that up. We got a sentence to the left. That forms a complete thought. Dr. Scott is going to play basketball this afternoon. If you were to walk up to somebody on the street and say that sentence, they'd say that's a little weird that you're talking about Dr. Scott like that. But that forms a complete thought. That's a sentence. If you were to walk up to somebody and just say, mow the lawn this weekend, like, what on earth are you talking? Who are you talking about? There's no person that's doing that action in here. So this is not a full sentence here. So the semicolon isn't used. You only use the semicolon when you're combining sentences, when you have sentences on both sides of that semicolon. And Little Shawnee gives you some examples on 393 of different ways that you use semicolons. Like if you have a really long list of items, you can use a semicolon to break things up, and I think that's good advice. Sometimes in the sciences, folks that are writing in the sciences, you need to be able to show a number of different ingredients or a number of different protocols for an experiment, and sometimes using a semicolon in that fashion makes some good sense. But when we're combining sentences, you need to have a sentence to the left, you need to have a sentence to the right. You got your transition signal in the middle, comma, he'll mow the lawn this weekend. That's how you do it. So try using those into your writing. It's kind of like sipping tea with your pinky out. It kind of elevates your game a little bit, adds a little bit of diversity, and especially if you're in the habit of writing with a lot of short and choppy sentences, that gets really tough to read. So integrate these into your writing, please, so that it gives us a break from reading really short and choppy sentences. If you got questions, make sure you email me.